The wind howled across the plains like a mourning animal, dragging dust, ash, and the stench of death across the shattered remains of the wagon trail. Broken wheels lay half buried in the dirt, splintered like bones snapped by a giant's hand. Canvas covers were shredded, stained dark with dried blood that told a story no one would ever forget. Bodies, men, women, children, lay scattered where they had fallen, their final moments frozen beneath the open sky. This place had been a road of hope only hours before, a promise of new beginnings. Now it was a graveyard stretching as far as the eye could see. Elias Crow stood at the edge of the devastation, his boots sinking slightly into the soil soaked with sorrow. He was a widower, a broken man long accustomed to grief, yet even he felt his chest tighten at the sight. His wife had been buried 2 winters ago, his infant son taken by fever before he could even learn to speak. Since then, Elias lived alone in a weather-beaten cabin miles from any settlement, surviving by trapping, mending fences, and talking to memories that never answered back. He had been riding toward town to trade pelts when the smoke caught his attention, a thin black ribbon rising into the sky like a warning from God himself. Now here he was, staring at the aftermath of a massacre, so brutal it made his own losses feel newly opened. He dismounted slowly, hand resting near his rifle, eyes scanning the horizon. Whoever had done this could still be close. Elias had seen violence before, raiders, outlaws, men driven mad by hunger, but this was slaughter without mercy. He whispered a prayer under his breath, more habit than faith, and began walking through the wreckage, step by careful step, listening. That's when he heard it, a sound so faint it nearly vanished beneath the wind. A breath, a sob. Elias froze, every nerve in his body tightening. He followed the sound past an overturned wagon where a dead horse lay stiff and bloated, flies buzzing thick around it. There, beneath torn canvas and shattered crates, he saw her, a woman barely conscious, her dark hair matted with blood, her dress ripped and caked with dirt. A deep gash ran along her temple, and her breathing was shallow, uneven. She should have been dead like the others. Somehow she wasn't. Elias dropped to his knees beside her, heart pounding. He had no idea who she was, only that she was alive, and that meant something still mattered, in a world that had taken almost everything from him. Carefully he lifted her, surprised by how light she felt, how fragile. She stirred weakly, lips trembling as if trying to speak, but no sound came. "Easy," Elias murmured, his voice rough from years of silence. "You're safe now." He didn't know if that was true, but he said it anyway. He wrapped her in his coat and carried her to his horse. Glancing back one last time at the massacre, he felt a weight settle on his soul as if fate itself had placed this woman in his arms. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that the bloodied survivor he was rescuing was not a simple traveler, not a nameless settler. She was Eleanor Ashford, Baroness of West Haven, one of the wealthiest women in the territory, traveling in secrecy to escape threats against her life. By the time Elias reached his cabin hours later, night had fallen. He laid her on his bed, cleaned her wounds with shaking hands, and fed the fire until warmth filled the room. As he worked, he spoke softly, telling her nothing and everything, about the land, about the quiet, about how loss teaches a man to survive even when he no longer knows why. She drifted in and out of consciousness, eyes fluttering open once to meet his, filled with fear and confusion, before closing again. Elias sat beside her long into the night, watching her breathe, guarding her as if she were the last living thing in the world. Outside, wolves howled and the plains whispered of danger yet to come. Inside that lonely cabin, 2 shattered lives hovered, on the edge of something neither of them could yet understand. And if this story has already pulled you into its world, if you feel the weight of survival, loss, and fate, then this is the kind of story that deserves to be followed. Subscribe to the channel, because what begins here in blood and sorrow will soon grow into a story of truth, revelation, and a destiny that will test love, loyalty, and courage in ways neither Elias nor Eleanor could ever foresee.